Imagine a galaxy drowning in silence, not because the battles have ended, but because the very minds that once shaped reality can no longer touch the invading nightmare. For millennia, psykers have stood as the Imperium's desperate shield, their powers carving momentary gaps in the endless hunger of the Tyranid swarm. But now, imagine those same powers slipping through Tyranid flesh like water through clenched fingers. No resistance, no effect, no hope. The unthinkable has happened. The Tyranids have evolved complete psychic resistance. A silent wave spreads across the stars as astropaths collapse, navigators convulse, and every corner of the galaxy feels something go terribly wrong. The one thing that could slow the hive mind has been rendered meaningless. This isn't just a what-if scenario. This is the beginning of a cosmic extinction event. The first signs are subtle, too subtle for a galaxy built on constant crisis. Psykers stationed on frontier worlds report strange static, an eerie sensation of pushing against an invisible void. Their minds reach out, but the warp-born force meets nothing, like a hand swinging into empty air. A battle fleet near the Kraken remnants makes the first confirmed report. A librarian unleashes a devastating psychic blast at an advancing Tyranid brood, and nothing happens. Not even a flinch, not even a flicker of resistance. Instead, the creatures surge forward with renewed speed, guided by the flawless precision of the hive mind. The librarian is overwhelmed, his final thought not of fear, but confusion. How could something so deeply tied to the warp simply reject it? Then the real horror begins. Across Segmentum Solar and beyond, astropaths scream in perfect unison before falling into unnerving silence. Their minds, once able to detect even faint psychic ripples, now experience a blinding blackout wherever Tyranid shadows fall. Fleets vanish from psychic maps. Entire systems go dark. The Astronomican, normally a blazing beacon, flickers in distortion as the hive mind blankets entire regions in silent interference. It is not an offensive attack. It is the complete lack of psychic presence, a void so absolute that psykers cannot even grasp the edges of it. This silence spreads faster than any tendril of biomass, a psychic eclipse stretching across the stars. The Imperium's High Command convenes emergency councils. Tech priests scramble to compensate for missing psychic communication, but no machine can replace astropathy. Adeptus Astartes chapters report catastrophic battlefield failures. Librarians who once countered synapse creatures now stand powerless. Even Grey Knights, warriors honed specifically to combat psychic horrors, find their greatest weapon dulled, their minds unable to penetrate the evolutionary armor the Tyranids now possess. Scholars theorize that the hive mind has achieved a form of warp-null structure, a biosignal so advanced it bends neural perception around it. Not a shield, something far worse, a biological void. On the front lines, Imperial forces quickly realize the strategic catastrophe. Tyranid synapse leaders can now operate without psychic vulnerability, no longer fearing mental disruption or warp-based suppression. Warriors move with algorithmic perfection, adapting rapidly to every countermeasure. Hive tyrants coordinate planetary-scale assaults with unheard-of accuracy. Broodlords infiltrate impossible locations. Lictors vanish before detection is even attempted, and beneath it all, the hive mind grows sharper, cleaner, free from the warp static that had once clouded long-range coordination. Every swarm behaves like a single organism, its parts operating with terrifying unity. Reports emerge of a new Tyranid organism, an evolutionary step that may have triggered this resistance. Battlefield cogitator logs describe towering bioforms pulsing with translucent nodes, their presence instantly nullifying all psychic attempts within kilometers. These entities don't attack psykers. They dismantle the very mechanism through which psykers perceive. Librarians attempting to identify the creature find their minds slipping into numbness, unable to recall details even minutes later. The hive mind is no longer merely consuming biomass. It is consuming the psychic foundation of its prey, refining itself into the ultimate apex predator, not only of matter, but of perception. Across the galaxy, factions react with spiraling dread. The Eldar, long masters of psychic warfare, face a threat that cuts to the core of their existence. Their Farseer's divinations collapse into static whenever Tyranid tendrils cross their path. Craft worlds reposition in panic, desperate to avoid the approaching void. Even the ancient Ordo Xenos treat this development with unprecedented fear, understanding that the Imperium's most crucial strategic doctrines are now obsolete. Without psychic warfare, whole sectors become blind, deaf, and directionless. For the first time in ages, the Tyranids become a threat that cannot be predicted, only endured, and deep within the warp, something else shifts. Tyranids, once disruptive but detectable, now move through the immaterial like stones dropped into an ocean of fog. Daemons fail to sense them. Warp entities avoid them instinctively. The hive mind's presence no longer disturbs the warp. It erases its own footprint. Some speculate the hive mind evolved this to isolate itself, preventing any warp-born entity from observing or influencing its strategy. Others fear a darker possibility, that the hive mind has found a way to starve warp predators by cutting off the psychic energy they rely on. A consumptive silence spreading not just in real space, but in the immaterial plane as well. Mankind attempts countermeasures. Null weapons, pariah technology, and ancient relics from forgotten vaults are deployed in desperation. But early tests prove devastatingly ineffective. The Tyranids are not merely resistant. They adapt to anti-psyker fields faster than the Imperium can generate them. Attempts to weaponize blanks against the swarm fail as the hive mind develops intricate behavioral patterns to isolate, surround, and overwhelm null emitters. The Tyranids treat psychic immunity not as a defense, but as a baseline. Any attempt to counter it becomes another genetic puzzle the swarm solves within hours. As the galaxy grapples with this new evolutionary nightmare, strategic landscapes collapse. Warp travel becomes chaotic, with navigators unable to rely on familiar psychic markers. Fleets drift off course. Reinforcements arrive too late, or not at all. The Imperium's carefully balanced war machine begins to fracture. Entire subsectors fall without warning as Tyranid forces coordinate multi-front assaults with surgical precision. The swarm is no longer a tide. It is a scalpel, cutting deep, clean, and relentlessly. Without psychic intelligence, planetary defenses are caught unaware, responding to shadows long after the real threat has arrived. On the battlefield, morale plummets. Soldiers who once relied on psykers for counter-synapse disruption now face an enemy that feels unstoppable. The silent coordination of the swarm generates a new psychological terror. The Tyranids move without hesitation, without noise, without the slightest deviation. They are no longer reacting to threats. They are predicting them. Imperial commanders describe them as a machine made of flesh, guided by an intellect that calculates probabilities with terrifying accuracy. Every swarm behaves like a living supercomputer, optimizing strategies as fast as the battle unfolds. Yet the greatest threat lies not in the present destruction, but in what the hive mind may become next. If it can shut out psychic influence entirely, what prevents it from evolving further layers of cognitive shielding? What if it learns to manipulate the absence itself, creating regions of real space where no warp-based travel, communication, or detection can function at all? Such a development would fracture galactic civilization permanently. Humanity relies on the warp the way lungs rely on air. Remove it, and entire empires suffocate. The hive mind may be learning to weaponize this suffocation. A few radical strategists propose a terrifying theory. Maybe this evolution did not emerge naturally. Perhaps the hive mind encountered something, some extragalactic anomaly that forced it to adapt. Something that required absolute psychic isolation to survive. If true, then whatever shaped this mutation may still be approaching, and the Tyranids, for all their hunger, may themselves be fleeing from a greater predator. The thought alone fractures the resolve of Imperial scholars. A threat that could force the hive mind to evolve psychic immunity would be beyond comprehension. As systems fall and sectors collapse into silence, one reality becomes clear. The galaxy has lost its only natural advantage against the swarm. Psychic warfare had been the slender thread preventing the Tyranids from overwhelming everything through sheer numbers and coordination. Now that thread has snapped. What remains is a war of attrition against a foe capable of perfect adaptation. And no matter how many worlds the Imperium burns, how many shields it raises, how many fleets it musters, Tyranid evolution always outpaces resistance. The swarm learns, the galaxy does not. In the final analysis, psychic immunity transforms the Tyranids from a galactic threat into an existential inevitability. Not because they suddenly become omnipotent, but because they erase the most fundamental mechanism through which their enemies understand and respond to them. They turn the galaxy silent, strategically, psychologically, and metaphysically. And in that silence, the swarm thrives. Worlds die quietly. Fleets vanish without a trace. Empires crumble without warning. The hive mind consumes not with noise, but with perfect, calculated stillness. So what if the Tyranids developed psychic resistance? Then the galaxy would not fall in a fiery storm of destruction. It would fall in absolute, crushing quiet. A silence engineered with predatory precision. A silence where no warning can be sent, no vision can be cast, no hope can be projected across the void. A silence in which the hive mind listens, learns, adapts, until nothing remains but the steady heartbeat of a swarm that has outgrown every limit, every barrier, every defense. And in that eternal quiet, the galaxy would finally understand the true meaning of hunger.